content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis. Hello, Ryan Alford, your co-host, joined by my good friend and business partner down in the Vacay Lounge in Miami, Chris Hansen. What's up, brother?
What's up, my man? How are you today?
You know, I'm good. I'm good because we got the good doctor in the house.
Right.
You know, and pretty pumped about this one. We've got Dr. Benjamin Kaplan. He's the Chief Medical Officer of Seed Clinic and author of the doctor-approved Cannabis Handbook. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. Good to be here.
Yeah, man. We've been, we like to say our goal with the show is we want alternative wellness to no longer be alternative, especially when it shouldn't be. And I think that's where you're right down your alley, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's the alley of the American people. You know, people are sick of the same doctors and the same nurses telling them the same line. And, the money speaks for itself. 3/4 of the dollars spent in the U.S. are spent on healthcare outside of the hospitals and clinics. Whether that's nutrition or massage or gym memberships, people want something that's going to give them real results.
That's right. Well, we want wellness. I mean, wellness is people have realized that they have control and can control their own life, liberty, and happiness and wellness. And so, and now there's, with between technology and availability, there's never been a better time to take control of it. But we've got to shine the light and remove barriers to things and substances and stuff that isn't just made in a lab.
Yeah, exactly. And I think cannabis is the perfect fruit of that mission, where cannabis is still a mystery to a lot of doctors. It's still a mystery to most individuals. They've heard it's helping friends and family, but they don't know anything about it. And I saw that as an opportunity. I mean, I'm an avid reader, but I'm also a teacher, and I love sharing what I'm learning in simplified language. And I picked up my pen about 3 years ago, wrote the doctor-approved Cannabis Handbook to translate all of the confusion around cannabis and what to do and how to do it, what's real, what's not real, to give it to the American people and anybody who's willing to listen.
Let's set the table for everyone.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, boy.
Don't get run over.
Yeah, great. Yeah, good thing it's not live. We can edit. Doctor, let's set the table for our audience. We've got someone interesting that's done so much. We always like to jump to the good stuff quick. So I know it's all good for you, but I want to at least set the table. Let's give everyone a little bit more of your background. Where did the passion for cannabis start? And, let's just talk about that journey a little bit.
Sure. I'm trying to transform the way the general public understands and engages with natural medicine. Cannabis products are part of that, explaining them, helping the public and the medical industry get how and where those fit into the grand scheme of healthcare and wellness is what drives me. For the aspect of my own career, I'm an avid reader, devouring the available research. I'm publishing the world's largest library of cannabis publications. And as I said, I'm an educator and researcher sharing what I learned with the public. I oversee hundreds of thousands of patients, or have in my short career, as well as publishing the world's first medical cannabis therapies handbook, this doctor-approved cannabis handbook. But I've also published in the New England Journal of Medicine. And I teach online for free across dozens of platforms and social networks. And I love helping people schedule those therapies. In other words, building systems to help people fit natural therapies into the puzzle of daily life. It's part of my career. It's part of my passion. I built EO Care. This is a private company that's building a digital therapeutic platform that pairs products and care with a unified solution. Some people are sick of dealing with dispensaries and the folks behind the counter who have really no qualifications other than they're really kind of wonderful people and like their own products, but they're serving medical people with medical products, and that's not okay. So I wanted the public to have the keys. And the keys is just the knowledge to do with cannabis what's right for them.
How'd you discover cannabis? Like where did the
What's
passion?
funny, the passion,
Yeah.
So I'm a through and through nerd. I never did cannabis personally, even through college. I had friends and family that did, but never interested in me personally. It was actually my patients sitting across from me as a family doctor. I'm a board certified family physician. I work in the suburbs of Boston at some of the premier hospitals here. And my patients in front of me were telling me, you know what, doc, I don't need those pills. I have cannabis. And someone else said, you know what, doc, my back pain is fine. My menstrual cramping is fine. My headaches are gone. And I knew nothing about what they were talking about. I was like, this seems crazy. And one of these crazy things that happens in medicine, 1 week, everybody I was talking to had the same story, like cannabis is doing it for me. And that happens in medicine. Sometimes it's sore throat week, or it's ankle breaking week, or vision trouble week. But this week was cannabis week, and I knew nothing about it. And I was sitting across the table from my patients thinking, boy, I need to school myself here. I need to learn what I don't know. And I did what I was trained to do. I opened up my books, I looked up on PubMed, and I found all of these studies that I thought weren't there. Everybody tells me, oh, there's no study in cannabis. We need more research. There's not enough. It's baloney. There's tons. There's 10 times more studies about cannabis and terpenes and flavonoids than the common cold. There is so much more information out there that nobody's teaching, nobody's reading. Doctors are kind of clueless about. They're not following patients. So I dove in. This was my picnic, an opportunity for me to distinguish myself as someone who really cares, and I'm able to think outside the box.
Why the hell is it so foreign and all this knowledge is there? We talked pre-episode, the history of cannabis, and as a father of four, I toil even myself a little bit with the stigma of growing up believing and being told that this is a drug, a Scheduled 1, the DEA, I have those own thing, and I've got 4 children, and my wife's a principal at a middle school, and I'm like, but I talk about these, but it's like, so I know it, but why is it so stigmatized and so hidden and not more in the forefront?
Well, ironically, it's a good thing that medicine doesn't jump around too much. Someone who has a great paper and says, oh, salt is good for everything. Everybody dives into salt and, oh, shoot, we have high blood pressure everywhere. And then someone else says, wait a minute, salt is bad. And this happens a lot in medicine. Medicine and science are not exact. It's not mathematics. We don't find exact equations. We find a theory that we can prove or at least falsify. And medicine swings like a pendulum. So anybody jumps on one side of the pendulum too quickly, you might be disproven very quickly. So the history of medicine was humming along, and actually cannabis has always been part of medicine. It's only the last 100 years that we haven't known it as an intimate and effective medicine. But like what we were talking about before, politics can affect what people learn, what people teach. And cannabis used to be part of the pharmacopoeia. It was taken out. The American Medical Association used to be in huge favor. Actually, there were strikes for doctors to stop working because there was talk of making this, an illegal situation. Of course, that has swung full circle. The AMA is now, really not favor of cannabis at all. So the tides of history change and people learn different things. I grew up, thinking cannabis was evil. It wasn't taught in medical school. We have to do learning ourselves, especially in this day and age of the internet and alternative facts. People have to judge for themselves and really touch and feel what is their truth. And it's sad to me that information to support cannabis isn't out there. And that's what this doctor-approved cannabis handbook is all about. I want people to have access to truth. Every single claim in this book I wrote has a peer-reviewed reference in the back. This is not trust the doctor, check my facts. I'm right there. I put it all on the table. I want people to judge for themselves.
What are the, not necessarily for yourself, being so connected and having so much knowledge on it, what are the eye-opener findings within your book, within the treatments? because I think people, and you know where I'm going, Doc, but like, I do think that there's the people that just still think people just get high, that everything is masked, that it's a benefit, it does all that, but really you just wanted to get stoned. You know, so that's what people think. And then there's people, okay, maybe it can treat pain, you know, the CBD cream. And then everything else is cloaked in mystery. So what are the biggest things that surprise people in having knowledge?
Well, stop the record, because the endocannabinoid system is the number one most prolific communication system in the body. We've heard of dopamine, we've heard of serotonin and noradrenaline, epinephrine. We've never heard of anandamide. We've never heard of endocannabinoid system. I mean, this is a system of interconnected receptors and molecules, binding molecules that hits every single cell in our body. Just let that sink in. It's not one system. It's not one organ. It's every single system in the body. And it wasn't discovered until the 90s. So think about all those old doctors out there who went to school in the 70s through 80s, not a clue. And even when it was discovered, that doesn't mean it's on front page. It means it's in scientific journals. It's growing in popularity. It's only now becoming available to younger doctors and doctors who have the time and the interest to look and learn. Our predecessors didn't pass that knowledge on to us. So doctors who are by all means an apprenticeship, we learned from previous doctors and how they worked effectively in hospitals and clinics. And cannabis was not part of that equation.
If that is true, and it is, it's a fact. Everything you just said there's fact. Why are we still, though, cloaked in mystery? I know things taken. You answered earlier a little bit. You don't want the flip flopping and all of those things, and that's appreciated. But why is it still cloaked in stigma if it truly? Because I'm going to use an analogy. So if our body is like an operating system or like a computer, this is the equivalent of a Mac having a plug-in slot on the back that it was made and built for, and a peripheral to plug in, but yet you just never use it, even though it was made for it. And so that's the equivalent of this, but yet in 2024, 70%, 60%, I don't know the number, I'm making up data, but I'd still say it's half or more people, weed is bad, cannabis.
I know when I tell people we all have that system, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, it's in a textbook. And I believe it's there for a reason. Like Ryan just said, we have this slot made for cannabinoids, but the government telling us, no, bad, devil's lettuce.
Right. I think that's it. Exactly spot on. The reason for stigma being carried on by generations is historical. You know, it's social, and it's also legal. Some of these things, some of this misinformation is just rooted in what our parents thought was right.
Right.
And that's passed on, and nobody kind of second guesses it. And you know what? That's what I'm all about. That's my job in my life, is to second guess this baloney that we were all brought up thinking, and to show the proof. And to help draw people's attention, whoever still reads left in the world, whoever watches YouTube videos, you know, there's opportunities for everybody to learn in their own way. And maybe for the younger generation, they should watch TikTok videos and learn about what's real and what's not. You know, for other older adults, maybe they should not only hear that their friends are using cannabis successfully, but hey, what was it that worked for you? How did that work for you? What were the bad effects? Learn about it. You know, be motivated and interested. Maybe challenge your doctor. If your doctor says, oh, no, that's just for phonies, if you do that, you're going to be, you know, shooting up LSD in 10 minutes. Okay, really show me where that's come to your attention. Where are you seeing that?
It's the gateway drug.
Right, right. And similarly, you know, you take the gateway drug, people who have that idea that, oh, if you take cannabis, then something else, look that up online. We have so much available information now. You'll see that the gateway theory changes. It's like a football for every politician. first it's a gateway to alcohol, then it's a gateway to inner city crime, then it's a gateway to racist stuff. It's just baloney. It's just a political football that means nothing. And there's no evidence that shows when people consume cannabis that they're more likely to have problems with something else. It's just complete falsehood.
100%.
What's a treatment that most people aren't aware of that cannabis can treat?
That's a great one. I would say cannabis topicals are the most surprising for people. I have professional athletes. I have little old ladies and men. I have a professional musician who had debilitating arthritis in his hands and he couldn't play anymore. And he came to me once he'd failed, 5 other therapies and says, maybe this is a Hail Mary. Maybe cannabis can do something. If nothing else, maybe I'll be high. He didn't understand either. And he and I found the formulations that actually worked, which is saying a lot because there's a lot of products out there with not a lot of evidence behind them. People just trying to sell a product and they throw cannabis on the label thinking that's going to sell a product, but they don't know what's in it and what works. He bought some products with guidance that actually worked. And this is a guy who's in his 60s and he's now performing again. He's now working again. And this whole documentary, by the way, is on my YouTube channel. For people that have YouTube, it's Seed Clinic. So it's YouTube/C/CED Clinic. You can watch his whole documentary. It's really moving. And I have people who have arthritis like him. I have people who have skin issues like vitiligo. This is a treatment where the body's own immune system is attacking your melanin, the agents in your skin that give you color. And it's working for him. I mean, it's not a perfect cure, but it's helping that color come back. It's helping those cells regenerate. And let me pause on that one. Regeneration. Think stem cells. And wait a minute, is cannabis really that serious or is this guy kidding around? If you look at the medical literature right now, you'll see published literature that points to cannabis used topically stimulating subdermal stem cells that live underneath the skin. And those are kind of reset buttons that are being triggered by cannabis topicals. That should be absolutely earth-shattering to people listening.
You just blew my mind.
Right.
I own a med spa where we do all the Botox and all that stuff. That's awesome.
Right.
I just had the
and
stem
nobody
cells in my
knows.
head.
Right.
I just did the hair restoration. I actually go next week again, the goal was to also have some of our product in there, but that is absolutely fascinating.
You can't swear, but it is. And when you think about when people go bald, one of the standard of treatments right now in dermatology is to use a tiny, tiny needle into the scalp and inject anti-inflammatory molecules because some of baldness is the body attacking its own hair cells. Well, guess what is even more powerful than the steroids that we can inject into people's skulls? The endocannabinoid system. And if we have cannabis products that are formulated to have those strong anti-inflammatory components, there's an opportunity there. Imagine if we can unlock hair growth. And you know what? Think about that for a minute. There's this whole industry that we don't really have good treatments for, hair. There's another whole industry that we don't really have good treatments for. This is anxiety and depression. A whole other industry we don't have good treatments for, which is appetite stimulation. And guess what? All of these tie back to the endocannabinoid system. This is a system that's not been well understood. And here we finally have a piece that we can play with that's really powerful.
Yeah. The more you talk, the more frustrated I get, like in a good way. Like I was frustrated that's why we have the show. It's just like the shit that doesn't make sense to me. And it's like, it's unbelievable. What can people expect, Doc, with your book? I know you talked about it at the beginning, the doctor-approved cannabis handbook. Talk to the audience, and we're talking with Dr. Benjamin Kaplan, Chief Medical Officer of Seed Clinic. Talk to us about what people can expect in the book.
So this is not old wine in a new bottle. I wanted a book that people could read, so it's written for everybody. There's no scientific jargon. It is still written for doctors to read or at least be smacked over the head with because, as I said, I included all the references. So this is not just trust me, but it's divided into 2 sections. A clinical section, which is what is cannabis good for? Headaches, mental health, depression, sleep, seizures, physical pain. I want people to have specific information about how this stuff is working in their body. I want people to understand the theory and the routines that are actually working for people. I interviewed real patients that I see at my clinic. And I had them put in stories, in some cases, exactly their words, how this had worked for them, what they did, how they came to it. So I wanted to be really approachable through stories, through real evidence. And then half of the book is how do you shop? How do you deal with this confusing reality out there? How do you know what's good, what's real, what's potentially got toxins? How do you understand how to make this a part of your daily life and not be scared of it? Not to be worried about interactions with other medicines. I wrote a book that I would want to read, which is explaining it in simple terms, the stuff I really care about that's practical.
What's the nicest compliment you've gotten from someone on the book? Because I think people hear that and think, okay, all right, but like, what's been the feedback?
It's overwhelmingly positive. I actually just got an email this morning. I can't read it, but I got an email from a store owner, and she has been a real proponent. Of course, she knows cannabis well, and she read the book and she told me it brought her to tears because if only she had been able to talk to her mother about some of the stuff I told her about in this book. There's an end of life chapter and a Alzheimer's neurodegenerative decline chapter explaining to people how you can use cannabis for older adults that are not who they used to be. And she said, if only I had known, I could have made my mother's end of life a little bit more pleasant. And that would have been so meaningful for her. So for her, it was bittersweet. She missed the sort of opportunity to read this material, but it really had an impact on her. And clearly she was sharing it with, her other older friends, and, it made a real personal impact for her. So that was touching for me.
That's awesome. With a mother that's in early dementia, I can relate to that. And I want to pick up the book just based on you saying that. Yeah. With that said, let's talk about the other side, the bad side of this coin, which is the availability of cannabis nationwide and where the laws are and where we think that's going. Because I'm in South Carolina. Chris is in Florida, and so South Carolina, you good luck getting cannabis. Right. No, it's a frustrating puzzle, but ultimately, I think it's actually a good thing. Because nobody has the keys of truth and success, and we don't know the exact puzzle that works for everybody. And you know what? We don't know that about regular medicine either. And we've all been duped to thinking one pill is going to work for all of depression or all of happiness. It's silly. That's not real. Medicine has been studied for a 70-kilogram white guy. And there's plenty of people out there who don't fit that description. And here we are with cannabis, which is this natural plant, and it's wild and crazy. And every single region that grows it grows different products. Mm-hmm. So we have a natural experiment in this country and abroad. How is cannabis helping people regionally? If high THC is illegal, okay, how is low THC working for people? And what we see when we look at the public health data is that, gosh, cannabis in almost every form is working for people when they know what they're doing. So people who are taking CBD, some people realize, that's just snake oil. But you look at them again, hey, wait a minute, you are only taking 5 milligrams a day. That's not enough to do anything in your body. And other people over there are taking larger doses, 150 milligrams. And they think, wow, that's a big number. But you know what? I don't have anxiety anymore. I'm not stressed out. I can sleep well. And then someone else in another region that maybe doesn't have good regulation is saying, wait a minute, I heard bad things about the CBD. It was tested and there's bad stuff in that CBD. So wait a minute, there's an industry here that needs to be regulated. There's an industry that needs to have clear dosing guidelines, needs to have an understanding of what is good medicine and what's not. So there's a lot to learn here. Yeah. How far away are we from 50 state adoption, illegalization, federal regulation? I know I'm asking you to put bring your crystal ball out, but you're probably as close to it as anybody. Are we 10 years away? 3 years, So,
I have my finger on the pulse. I was actually just writing a letter to a bicameral commission. There's the House and Senate got together to learn about cannabis and what is real, what's working for people, what's not. And I sent them, of course, a copy of the book, but I also wrote them an email explaining my thoughts. The industry right now is focused on making money. Retailers are trying to make ends meet. They put a lot of investment in making this accessible to people, and they're trying to make their money back, as they should. But that means, what do what do people want to buy? The general public knows about CBD. They know about THC. They don't know about the other 500 molecules in this plant.
Yeah.
And that's a conservative estimate. There's a lot in here that people don't know about. And let me just go on that tangent for a second. I want people to really understand this.
Please do.
If you could imagine a miniature natural pharmacy that produces all of the pills behind CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, that's what makes this special. It has a number of enzymes that make it able to produce all of the natural flavors and smells and biologically active compounds on Earth. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not much. I mean, we're talking about close to 1,000 molecules out of cannabis that all represent something in the wild. You know, if you're walking in the forest, you smell pine, or you smell eucalyptus, or you smell geraniums or roses. All of those molecules, cannabis can produce on its own. So you take this freak factory, which can produce all of these natural pharmaceuticals, and you give it to a human who has a need. They're not sleeping well. And maybe they're not sleeping well because their muscles are tight or their restless leg syndrome's acting up. Their body is hungry for something that's not there, that's not fitting well. And all of a sudden you give that to them from this plant, and hey, their body's kind of happy about that. It gets into a better balance. And you know what? They can sleep well. Their restless leg goes away. Or for someone else, maybe it's pain. You know, maybe their nerves are just hyperactive. You know, they injured their hand or they injured their arm or their hip. Those areas are full of inflammation, trying to heal what's there. If you can give them a strong anti-inflammatory, and you know what, ibuprofen isn't cutting it for them, Tylenol isn't cutting it for them, they sure don't want steroids and the effects of those. You give them something that really works, they're feeling better. And that's what's happening across the spectrum of suffering in the world. So as this is all happening with lots of different molecules, imagine the confusion in the government when they don't know what to do here. I mean, the government has a patent for CBG as a neuroprotective agent. And yet the Controlled Substances Act says there's no medical value at all in cannabis. Let me repeat that. The government has a patent for this, and yet they say there's no medical evidence. It's crazy. The government is so confused. And you know, rightly so. They don't have guides. They don't have doctors who are educated guiding them. So this is really the blind leading the blind. But how cool is it?
How do we get you on the board of the government? You know, like
I wouldn't want to work with them either, man. No, thank you. Yeah, I don't want that stink. But it is sad, and I think how cool is it that we're all living through a time in our culture where we're coming to our senses about cannabis, that we're realizing this is not evil, it's not hurting people. Quite the contrary, it's helping so many different types of people.
So we're evolving, but were the Native Americans way ahead of us? Like using these compounds, you know, before they were stigmatized, and, you know, like I know they had a lot of other lack of advancements, you know, 200 years ago, however long it was, but they were using these things because they, you know, they're a medicine doctor or whatever. Right?
Yeah, no. In a world full of war, we sure could miss a peace pipe, couldn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
The Native Americans and also, you know, indigenous peoples of all across the world, you know, we kind of have decimated as we globalize, moving our Teslas and trucks everywhere. We're crushing the plant life, which might be helpful for us. You know, we're killing plants that might show us how to swim or, you know, walk in different waters. It's really sad what people do to destroy our planet that really could be helping us. I think,
go ahead.
No, I think at some point we have to wake up and we have to realize that, you know, pharmaceuticals produced by the pharmaceutical company are making them a lot of money. And are they really helping people in the same way that the earth couldn't? I don't know. We haven't really given nature a chance.
Yeah. And look, I live in a conservative state, grew up with a conservative family, and probably have I'm not a political person per se. I'm a logic person. And, you know, if you walked my life, I'm the last person you'd probably expect to be talking and enlightening this topic. But I just think it's crazy that we have something from the earth that could be treating and making people's lives better. And we have somehow gotten to this space. I say this a lot, but pharmaceutical good, nature bad. Like, ooh, the granola family that none of the stuff works, or it's stigmatized, whatever it is. And then pharmaceutical, though, when it's staring us in our face, how much money is being spent and the issues that it's causing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the term conservative and liberal mean different things to different people. But I think to some degree at its roots, conservative means, let's be thoughtful. Let's be careful about what we're doing. Let's make sure that we're not kind of jumping into wild, unknown territory that might be harmful. We got a good thing. Let's not ruin it. But you know what? What was the original medicine? Was cannabis and was plant life and treating people with respect, getting to know your doctor and your patient. That kind of core aspect of medicine is almost totally lost now. Totally, except that, those of us on this podcast and those of us listening get to be revolutionaries. We get to change the way things can be.
Yeah. And I think more on the conservative side, just that the politicians in South Carolina still demonize cannabis, And
yeah. Ignorance runs deep and far. It's not just the South, not just the North. I mean, I think those of us that can challenge what we are taught and see what is real always do better. People who are taking cannabis these days against all odds are healthier. They're living longer, they're happier. You asked me before what surprises me most about cannabis. We talked about topicals, but I'll tell you, I see men and women in their 80s and 90s who are so happy with their life. They are so happy with their cannabis, making themselves comfortable. I never saw older people happy the way I do the people who consume cannabis.
It's awesome.
Because it has the if they have aches and pains, it takes care of that. If they have stress from a life lived and all the, look, our memories can be good and bad, but diminishing that, I mean, it's like such a no-brainer, especially at that stage of life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is an exceptional opportunity for people who are frustrated with the current system. There is a good opportunity out there if you can just give it a shot. And it's not just random. I think the industry right now is mostly people throwing spaghetti on the wall. They buy a product that sounds good or the guy behind the counter says might help them, and they see what sticks. But there is an opportunity to have guidance. There are doctors out there who are knowledgeable. There's, of course, this book, the Doctor Approved Cannabis Handbook. But there are so many ways that you can learn and educate yourself. I would say just give it a try. Give it its day on stage. That's
been our whole thing. I mean, that was part of the motivation with Vacay was my own experience with pharmaceuticals. I struggled with pain meds for years. And of course, when you get sober, cannabis is, you can't touch that either. That's bad. Which I don't adhere to that. I don't believe that. Took a 2 milligram microdose this morning, like a caffeine blend. It's a company out of Colorado called 1906. But that was part of what was educating people like my mom, where you've been on every pharmaceutical for whether it's depression, sleep. And I'm not trying to put my mom on blast because I think this is a lot of the population, right? But in my experience with owning a laboratory for toxicology, that generation specifically they've been hit the hardest with the war on drugs and all this, where I'm like, just try, even if it's a topical, like you said. And that was actually what got my family over the hump, was snow skiing in Colorado, knee pain, and that topical worked better than any Tylenol, any Advil, anything. Where I'm like, that's insane to me that one experience changed the whole paradigm. And now mom's off Ambien. She takes a little sleep gummy with some CBN. Everything's crazy. Question for you. Terpenes. And for those that don't know, and Doc, you can expand more on this. It's what adds some of the flavor profiles to the cannabis. Like you said, the smell of pine or roses or...
Sure.
There's a big debate in the community if terpenes and the entourage effect. Do terpenes play an effect? I believe they do. I'm a strong believer in that. What's from your research?
Yeah. So the word terpene, for those of us listening, is just like the word shape. It's not referring to triangles or squares or circles. It's just shape. And cannabinoids are terpenes, flavonoids are terpenes. And, this category of terpenes is just sort of other hydrocarbon molecules that seem to interact with the body in some meaningful way. All of these molecules we're talking about, whatever fancy names they have, they interact in the body and help us heal. If you're on a plane flight these days, it's very common for a stewardess to give you a warm towel with lemon smell on it. And the reason they do that is not because it smells clean. It's because it actually feels refreshing. And when you're wiping your face down, if you're stressed out on this plane flight, you'll feel more refreshed, in part because of that lemon smell. Guess what? Lemon smell has a name called limonene. And that's what we call terpene. And guess what? Actually, limonene, just like you would imagine from citrus, lemons, has function in your body. And there's vitamin C and vitamin D interactions with limonene. And some people who consume limonene in the right amounts with the right products feel other healthful effects, things like energy, things like focus. So if a company can learn about what doses are appropriate and how those doses can be administered, whether it's topical or inside a pill, if they can figure out what the right match is for a consumer, that consumer will benefit from that terpene. So multiply limonene by close to 500, and you can see the grand opportunity here. That eucalyptol, well, some people have smelled eucalyptus, some haven't. But when you smell eucalyptus, you feel like you want to take an even deeper breath. It's very much like pinene. If you're walking in the forest, the pine needles, the forest smells beautiful. Everybody loves breathing, and you feel refreshed when you're walking in the forest. Well, guess what? What's happening in your body is called bronchodilation. Your lung passages are expanding. And you know what else does bronchodilation? Asthma inhalers. And people who have trouble breathing, if they have inflammation in their lungs, they take an asthma inhaler if they go see a doctor. That's what standard of care right now is, treatment for reactive airway disease. But there's a natural analog, which is if we can pull together some of these terpenes, like alpha-pinene, like eucalyptol, and we can put them into products, we can find a way to give people natural lung expansion without the pharmaceutical approach.
Well, call me when you find out, because I got asthma.
So and I'm sure there are listeners out there who are thinking, wait a minute, but why would you be smoking this? And for everybody who's listening, I'm not talking about smoking. I wouldn't tell you to smoke your spinach. I'm not going to tell you to smoke your broccoli. Yeah. Smoking cannabis is in part destroying the good stuff there. The temperature of smoke is just a way of heating up products so that you can boil them and get them into your body, but you don't have to burn them to heat them up. That's what vaporization is. You can have vaporizers that heat up cannabis just to the right temperature so you push those molecules into your body, and you don't have elemental carbon stuck in your lungs. You don't have the toxins that come when you mutate because of the extra heat from fire. You don't need to have that. And for asthma and breathing in, people think, wait a minute, if you're breathing something in, you're going to irritate the irritation that's already in your lungs. No. Asthma inhalers are anti-inflammatories. They're basically aerosolized ibuprofens that calm down the tissue in your lungs. You can have other forms of anti-inflammatories. We have steroids, we have ibuprofen. Guess what? Cannabinoids are also really strong anti-inflammatories. And if we can get those medicines into your lungs, they're going to work the same way that inhaler medicine does. That's what is so new to people. They don't think of natural medicine as being the same exact stuff. And it's not the same molecule, but the same way it works.
THC inhalers now I've seen, like in some of the dispensaries. Are they kind of like dipping their toes in, trying to kind of treat asthma with that, or is that just novelty?
No, I think it's, I don't know. Everybody has a different approach. I think in part, the medical industry, the quote unquote cannabis medical industry, is not really that medical. They don't have doctors who are in leadership positions. They're not educating people with medicine. They're trying to appeal to customers who have real issues and have medical concerns and questions. And they do that through stuff that looks medical. So an inhaler looks like it's medicine, and it doesn't look like a pipe. It doesn't look like a cigarette.
Sure.
So that's appealing to some people who have, what they would call dignity or self-respect. I think, these companies are trying to sell a product, and usually they get the dosage wrong. They get the formulation wrong. They don't know what they're doing. They're trying to fake it. But some companies, that's not fair. And some companies are trying to appeal to the medical audience. They're trying to address a population that's really marginalized, which are, the asthmatics out there who don't think what I just told people. They don't know that. They don't know that you can use cannabinoids as asthma relief agents. And maybe they would give this a try because it looks familiar. But by and large, I think the industry is just in its infancy. There's a lot of growth here. There's new innovations all the time. The old stuff that we all kind of grew up with, a dime bag of crunchy weed with sticks and leaves, is long gone. We have now patches. We have mouth sprays that look like the old Listerine or Banaka sprays.
Sure.
We have eye drops, believe it or not, that have cannabis in them. These companies are trying to do all kinds of different things. Seltzers is a new thing that's really popular in the Northeast. And I have a woman I've been seeing for a couple of years who has debilitating stomach problems. She went to the hospital. She was admitted overnight because of her stomach problems. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. They gave her antibiotics after antibiotics. They couldn't fix this. And, I'll cut right to the chase. She's now on cannabis seltzers 2 months in a row. And the doctors did a scope to look because she was doing okay. They wanted to make sure what's going on here. They don't want to see her again for 10 years. No. All of the information she had before is completely gone. It's crazy. Mind blowing. And I'm sitting here in my own little world, seeing these patients thinking, God, how can I scream this to the world? Yeah. People need to see this. That's what this book is about. I'm trying to get the word out.
Yep. And I will say this, it was early in that little part there, Doc, but I think the industry also isn't helping itself in some ways. Let's make it look like candy. Let's make it look like this. Let's, that doesn't help destigma, when we're trying to legitimize this stuff and we're trying to make it look like gummy bears and we're trying to the industry's got to get out of its own way at some point.
Yes, I agree. Yes and no. I agree with you totally. We can't appeal to kids who don't know enough to resist. On the other hand, I feel sympathy for the store owners who are trying to make a business. Like a lot of these stores, people don't know, take millions of dollars to invest and to start a store. It's a huge commitment. These people who are running the stores really empty their savings into making this possible, making this accessible to the public. And they want to make their money back. And that's totally fine. That's the American way. What do they do if they want to sell products? They look to the existing product market that works well. And we see, look, M&Ms are selling really well, or Sweet Tarts or whatever, gummy bears are selling well. And they think, oh, let's follow that model. And I get that, but they're not thinking it totally through. But, then again, Ryan, on the other hand, most of the regulations out there forbid children from buying cannabis. Kids are not allowed in the stores. They make owners put packaging together that is child-proof so that even if kids do buy it, they're not supposed to be able to open it. Like the industry's trying to make this work. It's not like it's out there trying to demonize kids.
No.
But there are a lot of...
There's some bad players.
Of course. Because
we're in the business too, and we see it. And so it's like, I just think at some point, if we want to make as much growth in this area and legitimization, I always say, I'm a marketing guy, you are what your brand says you are. So, you got to reflect
and
accordingly.
I know you and I have talked about that even with some of the marketing discussions, and in Doc, you nailed it. There's times, it would be easier to lean into the current trends to be kind of get high, and that's never really been our mission. It's been educating and getting product in people's hands that have never tried anything cannabis to see the value of it. And it's a tight line to walk, definitely, and trying to almost create a new customer market in a way. It's just a lot of exactly what you said, educating people and reprogramming that old hardwired software that's from 30 years of government marketing.
Yeah, there's a psychology angle here to consider too, which is if you're in a bad mood and you take cannabis, it's not surprising that the cannabis amplifies that bad mood. And we have studies that show this. When you're in a good mood, when you're in a good place, if you're surrounding yourself by comfortable seating and friends and family, you feel good, cannabis will amplify that. So it's really important when you're taking set and setting. Yes, this is, chapter 10 covers all about set and setting. But when you're feeling tasty gummies, it actually sets the mood for the cannabis effects. That's why we like, children's medicine that tastes good, because our kids aren't spitting it out because it tastes gross. Yeah. Where there's some elements to all of us that's still childlike, and there's some psychological benefit to feeding that. We don't have to take bad medicine. We all grew up through this puritanical culture that thought, God's medicine was the only medicine. And if we make, pharmaceutical medicine taste good, that's somehow sacrilegious. No, I kid you not. This is the logic in traditional medicine to making pills taste bad.
Apple cider vinegar gummies are my choice now when I go to the movies. Is a whole bottle okay?
It's true. I've told my sister, like, when she run out of gummies, I'm like, she lives in LA. I'm like, go, there's a million places. And she's like, no, I like the flavor of your gummy. And I'm like, and in my mind, I'm like, just if you're looking for the therapeutic effect, there's a million delivery methods, but she's one of those people that apparently for her is important for her set and setting. Like you said, something to kick off the experience in a happy way, childlike way.
Doc, I know we could talk for hours. This has been an incredible episode of education, enlightenment, and the credibility that you bring to this is next level. It's talking to someone so educated and so at the same time approachable. I imagine you have. If I was reading your doctor reviews, I bet you it says excellent bedside manner, because I'm just sensing there's a realness to you while also being intelligent. So that's the highest compliment I can give you.
Thank you. No, it's very generous. I appreciate it. And my goal is to reach people and to help people. And if I'm talking over people or using language that they don't understand, I'm failing my only mission. So this is what I hope for, is to be real with people. I wrote the book in real language, as I said at the beginning, because I want people to understand it. I want them to be able to have conversations with their friends and families and doctors and be able to communicate effectively. And we have to speak to each other.
I'll be sending a few of those out this week. I already know.
Where can everybody get the book, learn more about you, follow your research, et cetera, et cetera?
Thank you. So lots of places. I'm all over social media. To buy the book, probably the best place is kaplancannabis.com. Amazon is probably the better, but Kaplan Cannabis is my site that has some supportive stuff, lots of free diagrams and things. The book is without pictures. That makes it easier to publish and distribute. But I put all of those pictures for free on kaplancannabis.com. It's CAPLAN cannabis.com. So people who don't want to pay for the book and still want to learn, Kaplan Cannabis has hundreds and hundreds of pages on there. Like, for example, how does sleep medicine compare to cannabis? How does over-the-counter sleep stuff compare to cannabis? How does, all of this stuff I put on Kaplan Cannabis because I want this information to be out there, accessible. Amazon, of course, sells the book. If you just Google my name or look for my name on Amazon, it's Benjamin Kaplan, CAP. You can find the book. I'm all over Twitter at Dr. Kaplan, DrCaplan. Instagram, it's at Dr. Benjamin Kaplan, so Dr. Benjamin Kaplan. But if you just reach out to me, I'm accessible. I'm not here on some high horse. I want to help people. I want people to know and learn. I do treat people one-on-one through my website, cedclinic.com. But if you just figure out any of these sites and reach out to me, I'll point you in the right direction. I want this to be easy for people, not a cat and mouse chase.
Amazing. We will have all of these links that Doctor just highlighted on the show notes. We really appreciate your time, Doc, and good Godspeed to you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, this has been great. We talked about a lot. Hopefully the audience is still listening and engaged, and you really touched on a lot of important points. I hope people enjoy it.
For Chris Hansen in the Vacay Lounge in Miami, I'm Ryan Alford. We'll see you next time.